Good afternoon, everyone. It's about time the ranter gets into the Democratic debate. As far as the series of debates go, this is probably one of the better ones. I like the interactions, or at least most of them anyway, between the candidates. You could tell that some people are well aware of where their position are on the polls, so they have to make their name and be a little bit more lively than they've been lately. And some of it for positive effect, and I think others, quite frankly, negative effect. Um, there's a number of lines that came up that that I loved when Bernie Sanders was talking about how he wrote the damn bill. Amy Klobuchar came out and says, "Yeah, well, you may have wrote the damn bill, but I read the bill," and she got into what she considered was problems with the bill in it. And the funny part is that they pan over to Sanders, and it's like it looks like he assumes that even his colleagues did not read his bill because that's like his great line that he comes up with. But when she says that she read it, he's like, so. So yeah, that was an interesting one. Um, as I said, you can kind of tell where people are noticing where they are in the pecking order, so they're trying to either change up what they've been doing or try to make themselves more affable. Kamala Harris, it looks like that maybe she's not quite concerned yet, but given how her performance in the first debate got her acclaim and people's attention, and people were starting to back her a little bit more, by the time we get to this one, she's now down the line past Elizabeth Warren, Sanders, and Biden, that she's seemed to have changed gears. Uh, she was one of the first that went directly towards Trump, which was good. And it's kind of funny to sort of a side tangent how the debaters got the hint that maybe they shouldn't be trashing Barack Obama like they did the last time around, because there seems to be nothing but praise this time. Um, but yeah, Kamala Harris came out with more like these like personal anecdotes and stories, and she was laughing more, and I, I like her, but some of this seems what would you say, like out of character for how she presents herself. I mean, if this is a change of gear, then good, then but keep it up if that's the case. But I don't know, it came off like it was contrived. Um, in terms of winners and losers for this, I tend to believe that if you're gonna pick out a number, I think Elizabeth Warren won. I think Pete Buttigieg did for a completely different reason. But the people who lost is like literally Castro for what he was doing to Biden, which we will get into, and unfortunately Biden. Um, Andrew Yang is also very interesting, and I would consider him one of the rank him in amongst the winners. So you got three winners: Yang, Buttigieg, and Warren. Uh, Sanders is kind of status quo. Kamala Harris is status quo. Uh, Amy Klobuchar, unfortunately, is status quo because I like her, but she kept saying over and over again that you want the middle road. I'm from the Midwest, and that just sounds like a tagline. She's she probably is going to be a good voice for the moderate and the centrist, which we do need. I'm sorry, guys and gals, that we can't go far left. We especially when we are when we have a country geared in the other direction. I've said this repeatedly over and over again. This is a country of compromise, and you need the center to gather people from the right to agree and compromise to get to the center, and then you can go left from there because as once you go from there to here, over here doesn't seem as scary because it's like a shock of cold water. You change gears into something that people either have no understanding of, or has been told through propaganda that is horrible and it's going to eat their children. Paraphrasing. So Amy Klobuchar is a great voice for that, and a confident voice. I like that. It's just that I get kind of tired of people who resort to their taglines, like in every conversation, that tries to nail that home that she is this or he is that, and yeah, it's not required. Just speak your mind. And I know it's kind of hard thing to do, but speak your mind. Uno momento. All right, time in. But yeah, Sanders and Klobuchar seems to be status quo. Kamala Harris is status quo. Uh, we get into some of the problems with the debate. I think Castro was starting to have a smack of being desperate on where his position is in the polls and where he is for running for president. He has a pretty decent platform when it comes to the crisis at the border, and it's a lot of common sense stuff. It kind of reminds me of Cory Booker, who's also unfortunately status quo, as opposed to doing anything remarkable above or below. Um, I've always said before we got into this whole presidential cycle that a Castro Booker ticket, or Booker and Castro, would have been an interesting combination. So people who directly have youth on their side, but can speak to this era's vote. The people who are just like looking around and seeing how people in power are screwing them over. That would be an interesting aside. However, it's not turning out that way, is it? Um, but Castro is showing that he's desperate, and I think that comes off with him going after Biden the way he is. Now, to go into Biden, I thought his performance was actually pretty strong starting out. He was clear eyed, he was on the ball, speaking confidently, and so forth. That it was like, worry off that mind. But unfortunately, as the night progressed, that's when things kind of deteriorated for him. And I think he wasn't really expecting someone to go after him as much as Castro did. Now, I'll get my opinion onto Biden later on to this. But as far as Castro's interaction with him, what the hell, man? I mean, you both shared careers in the same presidential administration, and you were trying to make your national name, off of Biden by going after him the way you did. And the thing is that I was watching the debate live, and I listened to Biden live. I don't know what the hell Castro was talking about, saying that Biden said buying in. Because he said that not 2 minutes ago. You said that. You forgot what you said 2 minutes ago? And people go, ooh. Yeah, he thinks he was scoring points. I don't remember him saying buy-in. And when they rolled back the tape, no, he didn't say buy-in. So not only was that a crass way to go after his age and his memory, it was also wrong. And when Chris Matthews called him on it, and pretty much all these shows later on called him on it, he just like stuck to like, well, read the transcripts, Well, the transcripts right in their hand, and they're reading it to you. No, no, no. See, the thing is that if he wanted to make a national name for himself off of somebody, oh, he succeeded. However, that's going to be rather negative now, isn't it? Because they're going to see that this guy just try to hyena his way to scoring points off of trying to damage another, as personal as that was. No matter how much he wants to try to claim that it wasn't that, yeah, that was that. Uh, the other things that was going on during that, but actually along that same line, uh, the one of the cool moments immediately after was Pete Buttigieg pretty much saying that this is the reason why that no one watches these debates is the youngest guy in the room. I think he's youngest. He's 37. Youngest guy in the room is the most adult in the room, and thus making himself the most presidential in the room. Because I think we are getting tired of the bloviating antics of what we have, unfortunately, in the White House. That we want somebody who is not going to be trying to shout down other people and try to embarrass people, but somebody who wants to be there and be the adult and wants to speak rationally and wants to relay information to you as accurately as humanly possible, as instead of, the self-grandizing, everything is about me that we've been subjected to for the past 2+ years. Well, that's just me. What else was going on for this debate? Beto O'Rourke. Um, it was a great tagline. It got cheers in the audience. Says, "Hell yeah, we're gonna get your AR-15s and your AKs." You know what? That's a great line. But in this juncture in time, it's also a self-inflicted wound you just gave yourself. Um, there are many facets to look at this. I mean, the clear knee jerk is that you're not taking my guns. You're not taking my guns. Come try to get you guns. My gun's ready for you. Yeah, you say that, congressman of whomever who said that on Twitter. Yeah, you pretty much outed the reason why you shouldn't have a gun if you're going to threaten someone over saying that they're going to take your gun. Um, Guns are not your children. So you threatening somebody's life over an inanimate object that you can go and buy another one of a different variety. Just it does not give me confidence that you should have one at all. Now, I'm two ways of this. As I agree with people that responsible gun owners who probably have these weapons do not take these weapons out to Walmart and just walk around like that. I mean, those are people that you should be probably having an eye on. But people who have their weapons stored at home, take them out to the gun range, taking them out hunting, and having them ready to defend their families, they should be left alone. Because clearly they're able to pass the background checks. They clearly show that they're responsible enough to have weapons, that they're not going to go and do anything with them. They should not have any worry that someone's going to be coming for their guns. All right. See, that's the philosophy side of it. The others, I do get where Beto is coming from. This is not because people are going to be tagging this as like the irrational liberal nonsense that they're coming to take your guns and look, they said it. They said it. They're coming to take the guns. Beto O'Rourke is a resident of El Paso, and since that shooting, I saw more humanity and more true raw emotions coming from him upon the subject of mass shooting and guns. It's the same with like white supremacy and racism. I mean, you cannot say that his that what he wanted to do and what he wanted to say did not come from someplace personal. I mean, you don't have to know your neighbors to acknowledge that your neighbors got hurt, that your neighborhood got hurt, that your town was attacked. You know, that then your mind goes there, but for the grace of God, goes me or any member of my family that could have been in Walmart or in the parking lot of Walmart on that day. And for the purposes of talking about mass shootings, I don't know how many counts. I mean, I don't exactly know how many counts of these events happened where someone was holding on to an AR-15. Now, for people who are more savvy about guns than I am, I'll take your response that these are not These are not like M4s. These are not, war-ready weapons that fully auto. That cosmetically they look like an M16, but they're not. They're made. They're made for the single shot semi-auto file, semi-auto fire. Excuse me. Um, but it's still the most popular weapon being used. When it comes to the AK, I think was being no, that was used there too. AK-47s is one of my friends who's knows about gun ranking and gun purchasing and so forth. AK-47s are actually pretty heavily regulated. People want to know where this weapon is if you're going to buy it. They severely background check you, and then you pass those checks. Then the ATF wants to know where that weapon is at all times, and they want to make sure every year on what you've been doing with it. So, how this guy got an AK, little Patrick, is would be something worth having a conversation about. Um, the car shooter in Odessa apparently failed his background checks, but was able to get his weapons through private sales. That opens up, you know, there's some ambiguity with that. That what a friend can sell to another friend. Well, no, you still should do some background checking. If your friend that you're letting him borrow your weapon decides to go to McDonald's and shoot off his family, I think gives you thanks. Thanks for letting him borrow it. Thanks for him letting him buy it. So on one level, Beto was not wrong in what he wants to advocate. A buyback program, but as mandatory. There's the thing that I go back to. Responsible gun owners, there's far more of them than there are people who are ready to take their guns and kill people with. So I don't know how much you want to go after them, but any of these people, like that moron who says, "Oh well, my arrow is ready for you," they're the ones that needs to get watched. Then, if you are showing more affection to your firearm than you are supposed to be showing to your family, where you don't want there to be background checks, you don't want there to be any form of gun control, and you don't care if your child has to go to school head to toe in body armor because you want to keep your Mr. Bang Bang, then that is another facet of this that needs to be addressed. And, the whole process of people talking about it being mental illness involving guns. I'm sorry, I'm not going into a rant on guns, but here we go. That's great. That is something to address, but clearly this is clearly an American issue, since there are plenty of other places with guns, plenty of people with mental illnesses elsewhere in the world. However, we're the place that has the majority of all gun violence and more gun violent casualties. And again, it's an interesting concept where the mental illness factor, it always seems to happen when people are this skin color pigmentation. If it's anything darker, then it's gang related, or it's terrorism, or it's just crime. I mean, you chalk up the murders that happen, like places like Chicago, these buzzword cities where they bring them up because a Democrat happens to be like running a city or whatever, or it's a democratically traditional city, right? And so they bring it up and it says, "Oh, well, look at all this violence over here. We need gun control. Look at all this over here." Then you're also belittling the people that are living there, aren't you? If you want gun control, then yeah, across the board, white, black, whoever picks up a weapon and decides to do ill with it, you don't need a skin swatch to determine if someone is mentally ill or just has evil intent or is planning. And what's another one of those things is that, you know, we again have the back and forth of like, you know, we should do background checks. Everyone's background checks. It's popular. I don't want to do background checks. It's scary. Because certain people who didn't really get named all that much during the debate, if you notice that Trump's name didn't come up as much as you expect for the Democratic National Debate. I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad. I think it's actually kind of good because you say as much as you're running for president and you want to get rid of Donald Trump. Fine. But it's good to go from what am I going to do as president. Because the thing is that getting rid of Trump or succeeding Trump and becoming president, that's not when you like go, oh, well, that's done. Just sit back in the desk and then kick up my heels. No. At this point, we need people to be able to explain what they're going to do, which these candidates are doing, which is good. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, I think, is doing the best at. But yeah, Beto's comment, Beto's like emotional, frustration. We can understand that. It's like we go through these mass shooting after mass shooting and mass shooting, and then all we get is thoughts and prayers. We can't even have a debate on background checks because Moscow Mitch can't move a muscle unless his patron Donald Trump says so. I'm not going to do anything until he says he's going to vote. He's going to sign it. That's not how this government works. That's not how this government system works. There are checks and balances. Legislation comes up with the laws. They vote the bills, and then they go to the executive where he has to sign it. You see, he either signs it or he vetoes it. If you don't want something to be vetoed, then you make sure you have enough votes that override a veto. But if it's not enough, and he vetoes it, well, that's where that went. And then he has to take the responsibility to vetoing something about gun control and background checks. But apparently, Moscow Mitch tends to believe that we're in that autocratic dictatorship where we can't move a muscle unless the great leader tells us to. That is not how the American system works. And the great turtle who doesn't do shit unless it's in his favor, one of these people that needs to get ousted from his position of power, be it the Senate takes over by Democrats or he gets voted out. He has an 18% approval rating in Kentucky. Does that mean only 18% of the people actually vote? Because if that's the case, then he should have been distant memory long ago. But I digress. So I understand where Beto's coming from, but I also understand that his choice of words is a trigger. Paraphrasing. And it will be used in NRA meetings and in Trump rallies if he happens to be the nominee. Even if he's not the nominee, they'll probably use it anyway because they'll just paint him as the face of the Democrats. He's a new member of the squad now. The squad that's just so anti-Israel and anti-American and root for Al-Qaeda doing 9/11. That bullshit that I've just heard recently from a Facebook group from a band that I liked. We won't go into that. We might give them attention. But yeah, then add Beto to it is you're gonna take your guns. So we're gonna have to weather that storm, and then it'll blow over. So just square your shoulders, and just wait it out. But I will say that the debate was far more productive. I think we're getting the good lines of who's we're getting a closer look at who may be going to go down the stretch here. Elizabeth Warren is strong. Andrew Yang comes in with some interesting ideas. My only thing about it, with about Yang is he needs to stop with the self-deprecating Asian jokes. It's just I don't know. It kind of bothers me. You are a successful businessman who is running for president. You're going to be representing all of us. Don't cater to the people who have no idea, who have inexperience with Asians by throwing out Asian jokes. Well, since I'm Asian, I know a lot of doctors. I noticed that a few times that he spoke that he always brings that up. Um, I'm Irish Italian. I don't really bring that up, but then I'm not really publicly speaking other than to you captive audiences. But he's a cool guy, and he has a lot of interesting ideas. Um, uh, the $1,000 a month thing is kind of a gimmick. Is paying 10 families who go to his site and help them with donors or whatever. That's a gimmick. But at least it's an honest gimmick. So, why not? Um, one of the things that I'll say is that at least with for a certain number of these people, like Cory Booker, like Mayor Pete, like Beto O'Rourke, like Andrew Yang, they actually have viability to go beyond 2020 to 2024. So even if they don't get in this time around, don't give up. Make yourself more of a national name. Make sure that your opinion gets asked and recorded in future events, because you all can still run again in 2024, 2028. It's not it's not career ending to not get into the not get the nomination this time around. All right. For the last thing about this is about Joe Biden. All right. I like Joe Biden. I like Uncle Joe. And I'm not trying to be an ageist here, but it's time. It's time. And it's not has nothing to do what Castro did, because that was pretty much a scumbag move. But the thing is that I said this before. His last time should have been 2016. I understand why it wasn't. I'm not faulting him for not running, but that was his last shot. He has a legacy, good or bad, but people think of it fondly. So he has something that he can live out and be remembered to be beloved for. But the longer he's in this fight, the longer the duration he speaks, the more you can tell that the mind starts to collapse a little bit. He has passion. He knows what he's talking about. But the thing is that when he relays it, it just starts stuttering out, and then people will take advantage of it. I think he has a lot of good things that he wants to express, that he wants to do as a president. But the problem is that this is going to be a stigma that's only going to get worse the longer he's in this. And, you know, Donald Trump would has no problem with going after him personally. He doesn't. He goes after personally anybody all the time. He's a immature child at 72 years old and as president of the goddamn United States. In one of his debates with Hillary, he brought out the Clinton accusers and trotted them out on camera, then put them out front so that he can rattle her. I mean, none of that should have been allowed, but it was, because people were deer in the headlights on how to deal with this goddamn person. And 2 years later, he's still nowhere near being a president, but his sycophants who reinforces delusional reality and all his allies who are just trying to get what they want out of him and try to put the blinders on and ignore everything that he says or does that is not presidential in the slightest. He's ready to tear Joe apart. He's ready to tear Elizabeth Warren apart. At least he'll try. I think Elizabeth can survive it, though. Survive it better than Biden. If it was 2016 and he went after Biden, then I think Biden will still have enough viability that he could withstand it. I'm not too sure now. He gets rattled from Castro this time around. He gets rattled off of Kamala Harris. And they're on his side of the aisle. You know, it's easy to ignore the tweets and the rallies, whatever he says about Biden, outside of his presence. You can roll that away because he's a racist scumbag. He's going to say shit, and if you're one of his base, you like the shit he's passing for you. But when you get him face to face, there is not going to be any issues talked about, at least not from him. He's just going to be a shitbag to Biden on national television to try to trigger him into sputtering out something that will hurt Biden in the long run. I think it's just time. And I think he should be he does have value as a Democratic name. He can be that elder statesman that mentors, that supports, the next person that could be in line. He doesn't need to be president. But here's the thing. I know a lot of people that kind of agree with me on this, but it will not reflect on the polls. I more than guarantee you that he might take a little hit, but he's still going to be ahead of the pack. Because there are people who are into name recognition, who want to live vicariously the Obama years from Biden, who generally like him and doesn't like people picking on him, who are going to stick by him almost as fanatically as the people that stick by Trump. So he could be front running throughout the next year until we get to the actual primaries, to where we actually get to the actual nomination vote, which is going to be, on the visual, yeah, that'll probably be great for the Biden camp, but in the long run, you'll just see that decline as the days and weeks go by and people get more and more on him. William Castro hurt himself going after him in such a personal way. He already has one Democratic colleague donor, quit him and go to Biden. But it did open up the conversation onto the mainstream of how much capability that Joe Biden has in public life. For good, bad, or indifferent, that is now the question. And it's a shame. We have to go through this. Alright. Final word on the Democratic debate. It was a good debate. As I said, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, and Andrew Yang is my personal picks as winners. However, two of them are not going to see the light of day, but be that as it may, for the performance, that was great. Biden was strong up until the point of the end. Then he rambled on the reparations question, which it looked like he was desperately trying to make a point, but the coherence of what he was trying to say was breaking down. And for vultures, that was fun. That was great. But for some of us, it's kind of heartbreaking to see that happen to somebody. And it's just like, come on. A number of people like Castro, who so desperate to make a name for themselves, will do anything to get into the national headlines. Well, you're in national headlines now. Let's see how you run with that. And you do your causes disservice when you do that. Because there's one thing that happens when someone gets called out to being an asshole. Whatever opinion that you have that could be valid, how many facts that you have that you can list that are valid, all that becomes irrelevant because of your behavior. That happens. No one wants to listen to somebody like that. And so you do yourself a disservice by whatever information that you have that you could have people glean on and understand what's going on and nod their heads in agreement is no longer going to happen. Your defense of that, oh, this is a debate. This is a debate. How do you think Trump is going to be? No. You're one of the reasons why we're doing this. Well, there's this specific point of getting rid of Donald Trump as president of the United States is that he's disqualified and unqualified to being president because of his actions, his non-policy, and his behavior. Not to mention corruption and him making money hand over fist in any viable way of doing it. If it wasn't like having airmen stay at his golf course while they cross over the channel, or getting the vice president to stay at his hotel and have all his little underlings doing their events at his hotel so he can rake money in. Then it's just the little things. He wants to sell Sharpies now because he's going to make money off his own dumbassery. Or no, better yet, he's going to do straws. Let's go back to plastic straws. Why are Democrats are going after plastic straws? Well, I'm going to sell plastic straws. You know what? That's great. Sell plastic straws. You know what we can call them? We can call them Trump suckers. Because there's a sucker sucking on Trump every day. You want to be a Trump sucker? Do you? You want your little plastic straw Trump suckers? To go with your Trump ladies with the shirts that says he can grab him down here? Or you're deplorable? Y'all who go through your rallies and then you get your merch, like you're going to some convention. Yeah, I'm funny. Down here. Then you go home and you have to be a serious, wife and husband and father to children. After you spent your time at a rally cursing out the media, laughing at every inane bullshit that the dancing bear was entertaining you with. I believe you were the people that refused to acknowledge that you were voting for Trump last time around when someone came by with a poll. Oh well. So, yeah, that was a Democratic debate. Alright. Y'all have a good day. I'll probably be ranting to you later on in the week because there's plenty of things to talk about and the ranter rants because the urge to rant is rising. See you laters.